Today, we stand at the edge of one of history's most chilling mysteries, the first great Chinese empire, built to last 10,000 generations, that self-destructed in barely 15 years. In 221 BCE, Yingzheng, later known as Huang, the first emperor, marched his iron legions across the war-torn lands of the eastern Zhou, crushed the last 6 rival states, and forged a unified realm the world had never seen. He standardized writing currency, weights and measures, carved a network of imperial roads, built sections of the Great Wall, and imposed a strict legalist system that bound every village, every household, every individual to the will of the central state. For the first time, China existed, not as a patchwork of feudal kingdoms, but as a single, centralized empire. He declared himself the beginning of an eternal dynasty. Yet by 207 BCE, the Qin capital Xianyang fell, the imperial family was wiped out, and the entire empire lay in ashes. How does a regime that conquered all before it disintegrate so completely, so quickly? This is not a story of simple tyranny. This is a masterclass in systemic failure, political suicide, and the catastrophic collision of overambition, institutional fragility, and popular rage. Let's walk through every step of that 15-year collapse with strict historical accuracy. No myths, no exaggeration, only what the records and excavated Qin bamboo slips confirm. Let us start in 221 BCE, the moment of ultimate triumph. The Qin war machine, honed by over a century of legalist reforms, had defeated every enemy. But victory created a fatal problem. The Qin ruled a territory 7 times larger than its old homeland, using a system designed for warfare, not peacetime governance. The emperor abolished feudal enfeoffment entirely, and imposed a commandery and county system across the entire land. 36 commanderies, later expanded to 48, a revolutionary leap for centralized control. But here is the first crack. The bureaucratic machine was dangerously understaffed. Surviving records from the Li Yi Qin slips show one remote county administered more than 2,000 official documents annually, with only 17 full-time officials. Most local work fell to convicts, laborers, and low-status temporary workers. The central government issued endless edicts, laws, and demands, but local authorities lacked the trained personnel to govern humanely. They could only enforce, punish, and extract. The Qin system was built for control, not care. Next came the crippling overload of labor and taxation that broke the backbone of the people. The first emperor did not demobilize his armies or let the war-weary population rest. Instead, he launched a non-stop wave of mega-projects: the mausoleum at Lishan, the Yipang Palace, the Imperial Road Network, the Great Wall against the Xiongnu, and the Linggu Canal to supply southern campaigns. Hundreds of thousands of men were conscripted yearly, far beyond the legal limit of 20 days per man per year. Historical records show labor obligations were nearly 30 times heavier than in earlier dynasties. Taxes rose to crippling levels. Farmers surrendered 2/3 of their harvest to the state. Men who farmed could not feed their families. Women who wove could not clothe themselves. Entire communities collapsed. The Qin turned a nation of survivors into a nation of victims. The legalist code, once a tool of discipline, became a machine of terror. Minor offenses drew heavy penalties, groups faced collective punishment, and the roads were filled with exiled convicts. The people did not rebel immediately. They waited, terrified, for the emperor's grip to loosen. But it only tightened. The first irreversible catastrophe struck in 210 BCE, the sudden unplanned death of Qin Shi Huang during his 5th imperial inspection tour at Shaqiu. The emperor had written a secret edict calling his eldest son Fusu, a moderate and respected prince, to return to Xianyang to claim the throne. Fusu favored lighter rule, reconciliation with the old nobility, and easing oppression of the people. He was the Qin's last chance to correct course. But the edict was intercepted. Zhao Gao, a powerful palace eunuch and tutor to the emperor's youngest son Hu Hai, conspired with Li Si, the aging prime minister and architect of Qin's institutions. Both feared ruin under Fusu. Zhao Gao held a grudge against Fusu's ally, the great general Meng Tian. Li Si feared losing his power. Together, they committed one of history's most consequential frauds. They forged the imperial edict, condemned Fusu and Meng Tian to death, and placed the weak compliant Hu Hai on the throne as Qing Ershi. The coup destroyed the legitimate line of succession, decapitated the regime's most competent leaders, and handed power to a puppet ruler and a scheming manipulator. This was not a minor scandal. It was the moment the heart of the empire stopped beating. Qin Ershi and Zhao Gao did not stabilize the regime. They tore it apart, They launched a bloody purge of the imperial clan, executing 12 princes and 10 princesses in public. They eliminated loyal generals, veteran officials, and anyone suspected of dissent. Li Si himself was later arrested, tortured, and executed by waist severing. The court descended into paranoia. Officials dared not speak the truth about unrest. They only reported what the ruler wanted to hear. Meanwhile, oppression grew worse, conscription increased, punishments intensified, and corruption spread. The people's patience snapped 1 year later in 209 BCE. 900 poor conscripts, ordered to march to Yueyang to serve as border guards, were trapped by heavy rain at Dazexiang. They could not reach their post on time. Under Qin law, missing the deadline meant execution. Led by Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, the men chose rebellion over death. They declared, "Princes and generals, are they born better than us?" They raised flags from tree branches and weapons from farm tools. This was the first mass peasant revolt in Chinese history. What began as a small group of desperate men exploded into a national wildfire. The people, who had suffered in silence for years, rose up everywhere. Old nobles of the 6 defeated states seized the moment, raising armies to restore their lost kingdoms. Xiang Yu, of Chu, Bang, of Pei, and dozens of other leaders mobilized forces. The Qin Empire, which had once crushed all enemies, now faced a rebellion from every corner. The regime fought back. General Zheng Han assembled an emergency army from convicts and slave sons in the capital, and won early battles. He defeated Chen Sheng's forces, killed rebel leaders, and pushed back several uprisings. For a moment, it seemed the Qin might survive. But the rebellion had become too big, and the regime too rotten. In 207 BCE, the decisive battle arrived at Julu. Qin forces, led by Wang Li and Zheng Han, besieged a rebel stronghold. Xiang Yu led his troops across the river, then ordered his men to break cooking pots and sink their boats. No retreat, no surrender, only victory or death. His soldiers fought with ferocious courage, crushing the main Qin army. Wang Li was captured. Zheng Han, betrayed by Zhao Gao's paranoia and fearing execution, surrendered with his remaining troops. The Qin military was destroyed. There was no coming back. With the army gone, the regime collapsed entirely. Zhao Gao killed Qin Ershi, hoping to make peace with the rebels. He installed Ziying as a king of Qin, not an emperor, to reduce resistance. But Ziying, a thoughtful man, trapped and killed Zhao Gao within days. It was far too late. Liu Bang's army advanced toward Xianyang, with almost no resistance. The people of the capital had lost all loyalty. In late 207 BCE, dressed in white, tied himself with a rope, and surrendered to Liu Bang outside the city gates. The Qin dynasty, which had conquered the world in a century and unified China in a generation, was gone. It had ruled the unified empire for just 15 years. So, why did it fall so fast? Not merely because of cruelty, but because of layered, interconnected failures. First, the Qin tried to impose a hyper-centralized wartime system on a vast, diverse, war-weary nation, without transition or rest. Second, the sudden death of the first emperor and the Shaqiu coup removed the only figure who could hold the system together, and replaced him with incompetent, tyrannical leadership. Third, mass exploitation of labor and taxation destroyed the livelihoods of the people, turning silent obedience into violent rebellion. Fourth, the purge of loyal officials and generals left the regime without competent leadership to respond to crisis. And fifth, the old nobility, waiting in the shadows, turned a peasant uprising into a full-scale counter-revolution. The Qin invented the blueprint of the Chinese Empire. Every later dynasty followed its basic structure, but it failed because it demanded too much, too fast, from too many, with no mercy and no wisdom. It was a tragic, brutal lesson. Power without legitimacy, control without care, and ambition without restraint will always collapse under their own weight. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history. See you next time.